Take 17. We're back at it again. We are giving you a Memphis Grizzlies best worst video. I've recorded this like 20,000 times. My voice, the noise gate that I had just kept killing my vocals on the video, and you just couldn't hear anything. I obviously live in New York City. If you didn't know, I live in New York City, so there's lots of noise. So I just removed the noise gate though because I recorded the video like too many times. But we're gonna get right into it. So the Memphis Grizzlies depth chart looks a little something like that. That's not totally accurate because they also have Jaren Jackson Jr. and Danny Green. Danny Green, of course, got traded for DeAnthony Melton. And Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously is injured. Danny Green's also injured, and that's why he's not on the list. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is also injured. He's out with something wrong with his foot. The dude's been injured his entire career, and like he finally had one healthy season to show like his talent, and he blossomed in front of us. He was a defensive player of the year candidate. He was so good, and he got injured again. Dang. But yeah, so he got injured again, and the Memphis Grizzlies now their regular season hopes are a little bit up in the air. I think he was a defensive player candidate last year. He was, in my opinion, a much better defensive player that year than Marcus Smart. And I would much rather have Jaren Jackson Jr. on my team than Marcus Smart for a defensive team. So I don't quite agree with how they voted on that. But the one thing that brings Jaren Jackson Jr.'s stock down a lot is that he fouls a ton. This guy fouls like crazy. He can't stay on the court for more than 25 minutes without, getting 4 fouls. It's wild. And the problem is that he's been injured so much. It's been the exact same thing with Mitchell Robinson, where he hasn't been on the court enough to learn how to get past that as a player yet. And that is something that, obviously needs work. So what does this mean? Well, it means that Steven Adams is going to be their starting center for the first 6 months of the year before pre-All-Star break, or however many months it is. And Xavier Tillman, who was their backup 4, is now going to be their backup 5, and they have their first round draft pick, Jake LaRavia, who's a forward. They're going to have him backing up Brandon Clarke. So, well, let's look at the starting 5. So obviously they need to make up for their defense because they just lost Jaren Jackson Jr., right? They were one of the best defensive teams in the league last year, and well, with Jaren Jackson Jr. in, and with Ja Morant in, they went from, a top 6, I think it was, defense to like 15th. So Ja Morant has been a negative defender. We know that from, there's been the whole thing harped on the record. It's not nearly as bad as all that, but he is a negative defender at this point in his career. Yes, he can get you some blocks if he tries. No, he does not try that often. He's tired from his offensive load, and he's just an inconsistent attention wise. People back cut him. It happens. He's young. He's like third year in the league. His defense needs to get better. Moving on. Desmond Bane, I think, is like the ideal 2, and I think actually Jaren Jackson Jr. being out can be a big boon to him because last year he was playing without Ja, so he was kind of the 1, but I think being the 2 with a consistent 1 as long as Ja remains healthy for the entire year, which personally for Ja I'm always scared about, but as long as he can remain in that starting 2 role and really get used to it, I think he's going to be one of the best 2s in the league. I think he's, Klay Thompson 2.0. Now, I don't know if think he's going to be the best, shooter in the world or close to it like Klay, but he's really, really good at shooting. He's a great defender. He's big. He's lanky. He's got all these like great intangibles that just make him an ideal person to have on your squad. So I'm super high on Desmond Bane. I'm super high on Ja Morant. Obviously, his defense needs to improve. Like I said, Dylan Brooks is one of the best defenders in the league, or point of attack defenders, I should say. And Brandon Clarke is okay. I'm not super high on Brandon Clarke. He's a solid average to maybe slightly above average power forward in the league. Although he has his moments. He also has his moments where you're like, oh, that guy's just standing out there doing nothing. Just standing in the corner. Although that may be more because of all the players on his roster that are better than, I don't know. If he's on the Pistons a couple of years ago, would he be averaging 20? That'd be crazy. But anyways, so I think the main issue is that, okay, so they've got some perimeter defense. They've got Dylan Brooks. They've got Desmond Bane. Steven Adams is no slouch as a defensive anchor. However, he's not the same shot erasing type of player. He's more like an all-to-your shot, very fundamental, set screens, box out, get, a ton of rebounds, that kind of guy, which can be good for them. But remember, he is going to be taking up a lot of space in the paint that Ja Morant benefited from JJJ spacing out last season. Okay, cool. Well, what happens if they decide to run small? Now, I'm going to start with this. I don't know anything about Jake LaRavia. I literally don't know anything. I'm not going to pretend to. I'm not going to look up his stats and tell you, oh, well, he shot 40% in college or something, so he should be a good floor spacer. Like, bro, all that crap proves nothing for the NBA. I don't know dick about him, and I'm not going to pretend to. Hopefully he's good for you guys, because then the Grizzlies are probably going to do much better than I anticipate. Zaire, good scorer. Conchar, good shooter. Tyus Jones, good shooter, good, decent defender. Like, they have a decent team. I just don't see this team being better than the top four in the West, which, if we take a look, I have as the Nuggets, Clippers, Warriors, Suns. I don't think that they're going to have a better regular season than any of those teams. If I had to pick one, maybe the Suns, but I mean, the Suns won 64 games last year. I feel like I can't dunk them down into 50, 49 wins, like that range. Like, there's no way I can do that. That's too much. It's essentially the same exact team. So I have their best case scenario as the Grizzlies being a 5th seed, and maybe depending on the matchup, sneaking into the second round. As far as their worst case scenario, maybe like a 7-8 play-in spot. I don't necessarily think that they're the same inexperienced team that was going to lose in the play-in to the Blazers like before. If they manage to get a 7 seed, I think there's no way they don't win that game against whoever in the West. Let me just double check. Might be the Blazers or the Pelicans. I think they're better than the Pelicans, although they do have Zion. So that would be a sick play-in matchup. Ja versus Zion, bro, come on, man, that'd be fun. And then obviously, depending on the matchup, if they were a 5th, 6th seed, it could be dicey or it could be okay. They match up really well against the Warriors. So even if they manage to get the Warriors, if the Warriors are a 3 seed again and the Grizzlies are 6, right? I don't think the Grizzlies hate that matchup. I think they would actually be happy about it because they're like, oh, we lost last year because yada, yada, yada. This is our chance to prove us. I think they'd be excited about it more than anything else. As far as postseason success goes, I think it really depends on matchups for them. I think if they get a decent matchup in the first round, they can end up being in the second round, and obviously depending on injuries and whatever, they could make it to the conference finals. I don't see them being a finals team or even necessarily a conference finals team this year. I think that the West just got better. I think the Clippers and the Nuggets both leaped over them and got better, both in the regular season and overall. And that basically tells me that I think the Grizzlies need a year to retool. And that's going to be this year. And I think Jaren Jackson Jr. being injured only elevates that in my mind. Their worst case scenario, I don't think they're going to lose in the play-in. I think they're definitely guaranteed one of the 8 playoff spots at the end of the day. I think worst case scenario, they lose in the first round in somewhat embarrassing fashion. I think, but I just don't see this. This team has so much heart. There's no way they would lose. There's no way they get swept by anyone. I don't think they get swept by anyone. And at the end of the day, they're still young. They've got a lot of versatility. Who knows? Maybe Jake LaRavia ends up being a beast, but this year ends up being super valuable for him, and he ends up becoming a solid rotation piece for them in their championship run in 2 years. Who knows? So nothing is set in stone. these are just some of my thoughts on the Memphis Grizzlies. Hopefully, this video audio is so much better than the other ones. It looks like it. I'm praying. I'm hoping. Thank you for watching the Wizards video, though. I'm glad I could just talk about a team that I didn't think was going to be popular, just because I wanted to talk about a team and my homies on the team, and that did really well for my channel. So thank you. Continue watching, commenting, subscribing, liking, all that good stuff, and have a good one.